All right, welcome back. We are about to dive into a story that you probably think you know, right? Abraham and Sarah in Egypt. But what if I told you this wasn't just some personal crisis? What if it was actually a cosmic system test? And it was initiated in, like, the most powerful place on Earth at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And this one line from the Zohar, it's really the key that unlocks this whole thing. It says, 10 times Sarah commanded the angel to strike Pharaoh, a sign she made for her children after her in Egypt. And just like that, a personal story becomes this huge prophetic event. It's telling us that what happened to Pharaoh, well, it wasn't just payback. It was a pattern, a blueprint, being etched into the very fabric of reality.
So let's paint a picture here. I really want you to imagine this like in stunning 4K. We're talking about opulence that is just beyond anything you can comprehend. This was the absolute center of worldly power. Golden walls everywhere, just soaking up the sun. These huge, vast halls where the decrees of a man who was considered a god just echoed. This is Pharaoh's court. This is the peak of material power. And right into the middle of all that, Sarah is taken. Now, the Zohar is super clear about this. She isn't just a beautiful woman. No, she's a vessel for the Shekinah, the tangible, divine presence right here on Earth. Her radiance isn't just skin deep, it's this spiritual light. So what just happened? A piece of pure holiness just got dropped into a totally foreign, totally profane system.
And the reaction is, well, it's instant, and it's absolutely terrifying. The palace is just suddenly ripped apart by these unseen forces. This isn't an army laying siege to the walls. No, this is a precise, targeted, cascading failure. You can almost see shadows just creeping along those golden walls. An invisible hand is striking with this methodical, almost surgical purpose. And the whole system of the palace, from Pharaoh on down, it just starts to completely break down.
But you got to ask yourself, right? Why was the reaction so absolute? I mean, this feels like way more than just a punishment. The severity, the precision, the sheer power brought against one house for one woman, it honestly seems like a massive overreaction. So what was really going on here? What was happening behind the curtain that required such an incredible, structured response? Well, this is where the Zohar comes in with a totally radical answer. This wasn't a reaction at all. It was a demonstration. You could even call it the first live-fire test of a cosmic protocol, one that was being designed for a much, much bigger stage. Yeah, the whole concept is known as Siman Lebanim, which means a sign for the children. And what that's telling us is that the events in Pharaoh's palace weren't just about that moment. They were a dress rehearsal, a kind of cosmic precedent being set for everything that was about to come. And this points to a really deep principle of how reality works, It's that the universe operates on patterns. What happens here, on this small scale, the microcosm, is a direct blueprint, a preview for what's going to happen on the massive scale, the macrocosm.
Okay, so look at this. This is where it gets really fascinating, because the pattern maps perfectly from the prototype to the full-blown protocol. Just look at the parallels. You have one holy presence, Sarah, taken into captivity. Later, one holy nation, Israel. You have 10 specific strikes of judgment on one house. Later, 10 plagues on an entire country. The oppressor's family is afflicted, and later, all of Egypt's firstborn. It culminates in a personal release, which becomes the blueprint for a national redemption. The story of Sarah is literally the beta test. The Exodus is the full system-wide deployment. It's the same code, just running at a massively different scale.
Okay, so if this whole thing was a test, how did the system actually work? To really get the how, we have to pop the hood and look at the spiritual physics of creation itself. We're talking about the Sephirot, and honestly, the best way to think about them is as the divine operating system of reality. They're these 10 fundamental channels that divine energy flows through to interact with our world. And it all kicks off with Malchut, which means the kingdom. This is the Sephira that's like the interface with our physical world. It's the vessel for the Shekinah. And in our story, Sarah is Malchut. Her entry into Pharaoh's palace is the system intrusion, the event that triggers this entire cascade.
So when a sacred boundary like that gets violated, the system has an automatic response. It activates Gevura, which is strength or judgment. This is the realm of what's called din, or strict cosmic law. And this is key. The plagues aren't random chaos. They're the precise algorithmic output of Gevura. 10 strikes, a full measure of judgment aimed right at the source of the breach.
But here's the beautiful paradox. Even while the fire of Gevura is burning, the incredible grace of chesed, or loving kindness, is also totally present. I mean, the sources tell us that an angel completely shielded Sarah. The plagues are wrecking Pharaoh's house, but she's completely untouched, living in this little bubble of absolute divine protection. So you have judgment and mercy working at the exact same time.
And finally, every system seeks balance, right? That's where Tiferet comes in, which means beauty or balance. Tiferet is the great harmonizer. It takes these opposing forces, mercy and judgment, and synthesizes them. The system responded to the breach, and now it returns to order. Pharaoh caves, he acknowledges a higher power, he lets Sarah go, and bam, cosmic harmony is restored.
And this chart just lays out the whole sequence so clearly. It's not just a story with random events. It's a perfect, flawless execution of divine law. It's like watching a spiritual program run without a single bug. Malchut enters, which triggers Gevurah to respond. All the while, Chesed protects. And finally, Tiferet steps in to resolve the whole thing. It's a perfect loop. So let's bring this into our world for a second. Think of it like a critical system file on your computer. Let's call it Shekinah.dll. And that file, represented by Sarah, gets forcibly dragged and dropped into a hostile, unauthorized directory, Pharaoh's palace. Now, the system security protocol, that's Gevurah, it doesn't just blue screen and crash. No way. It executes a series of precise, escalating countermeasures, those are the plagues, to isolate the threat and force the system to eject the critical file. It's a totally structured, contained cascade of error responses. Okay, this next part is really cool. Kabbalah often links these divine energies with specific colors, and this lets us actually visualize the process. We can see the spiritual state change happening in real time. It's like watching a divine chemical reaction unfold before our eyes. It all starts with white. White is the color of Chesed, of that pure, untainted divine light. This is Sarah, the Shekinah, this point of pure holiness, right as it enters the profane space of the palace. That violation, that boundary crossing, it immediately triggers red. And red is the color of Gevurah and Din. It's fire, it's blood, it's strict judgment. This is the active process of consequence. It's the system's immune response kicking into high gear. And the result of that judgment hitting the profane system? It's black. Black represents the absence of that divine light. It's the total chaos and powerlessness that just swamps the Egyptian system. This is when Pharaoh's magicians are totally useless, his gods are completely silent. It's a spiritual blackout. And then, the sequence resolves to green. Green is the color of Tiferet, the Sephirah of balance, harmony, and new life. Order is restored. The system comes back to a state of equilibrium. The process is complete, and life can flourish again. All right, here's another analogy. And if you're a gamer, you're gonna love this. This whole episode, it's the tutorial level of a video game. Seriously, the player, that's the nation of Israel, is being introduced to a core game mechanic, how divine intervention actually works. And in this controlled, low-stakes environment, they get to see the special Din attack demonstrated on a mini-boss. This is absolutely crucial because this is the skill they're going to need for the main game when they have to face the final boss, the entire Egyptian empire.
So you see, this was never, ever just a one-off event. It was the blueprint. It was a system test that proved the protocol works flawlessly. So now, let's look at how this beta test was scaled up for the full public release, the Exodus from Egypt.
The number 10, you have to focus on this number because it's the signature of the whole operation. There are 10 Sephirot, right? A complete structure of divine energy. And the Zohar explicitly says Sarah commanded the angel to strike 10 times. And of course later there are 10 plagues in Egypt. It's not a random number. It signifies a full, structured, and complete application of Gevurah. It's the system running its judgment protocol from A to Z, start to finish.
And yeah, when you look at the Exodus, you see the exact same operating system being used, but now the parameters are cranked all the way up to a national, even a cosmic scale. Pharaoh isn't just a king anymore. The Zohar calls him the Tanin Hagadol, the great dragon in the waters. He's a primal force of cosmic opposition. And so the same 10-part sequence of judgment unfolds, that sharp separation between the holy and the profane is absolute, and the outcome is exactly the same, release and a clear declaration of divine power.
So after all this deep dive into cosmic mechanics, you might be asking, why does this ancient story even matter to us today? Well, it's because this blueprint isn't just a piece of history, it's a living pattern. It reveals something fundamental about how holiness interacts with the world, how order gets restored from chaos, and how these very same divine systems might just be operating in our own lives. And that brings us right back to where we started. That line from the Zohar, as a sign she made for her children. It wasn't just for her children back then, in Egypt. The wording is key. Children, plural, for all time. The sign was made for us. And what it teaches is that even in our own moments of crisis, when it feels like we've been swallowed up by some hostile system, there might be a much bigger, much more profound divine pattern at work.
So the question this whole thing leaves us with is a big one. If this pattern of a breach, a structured response, and a final restoration of balance, if that is hard-coded into the operating system of reality, then where do we see its echo in our own challenges? It's an invitation, really, to look at our own struggles not as just random chaos, but as the possible unfolding of a deeper, meaningful, and ultimately a restorative process.
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.